Hello everybody and welcome to our demonstration. Today what I want to do is take you through an AJAX use case that should be useful for a lot of different customers. Now in this case with Tesco, what we're doing is we're clicking on a delivery type change. So I'm going here from collect from store to delivery. And I filmed a prior demonstration to show you how to use tamper data. Now tamper data is a tool where I could actually click on these fields and I could see those changes inside the window. So if you remember from that previous demonstration, that checkout page was our page of interest. And the reason it was a page of interest was because in the post data, I have this delivery method selection and it tells me store collect. Now if I switch from store collect to delivery, let's go back to tamper data again and we'll look at this post and we'll look at this post data and you can see it went to home delivery. So the delivery method selection is our field of interest, and it's very specific here is that it is in the post data of the request, not the response. So in prior versions of Foglight Experience Viewer, we were not able to get the request content, but we can now as of 5.6.5 and above. So the first requirement is that it'll have to be on 5.6.5. So now that we know a couple things here, so let's go back to tamper data real quick. We know that it's my checkout page, and we know that we want the post data. Let's go ahead and Foglight Experience Viewer and do a couple of things. So the first thing we want to do is we want to capture that hit. So we know enough about the hit to now to capture it. So what I did is I built a hit filter. Go to Configure Hit Analysis, and most of you should be familiar with hit filters. And this isn't a class specific to that, but I built this hit filter called Tesco Test for John. Now if I click on the edit, what I did is this is the URL that we found in tamper data, and then I only want to look for posts, and this will be a little more selective for me so that it doesn't get gets. So posts are the ones that are going to have the variable that I want. Now what I'm going to do is once I define that, this just tells me capture all those hits. Now once I capture those hits, I can tell it to extract custom fields, and this is what's going to be useful for us. Now the first two custom fields I'm going to show you are just instructional. So all we want to do now is get the request content out, and we want to get the request content type. So you'll see here request content, I'm going to update the hit, and I'm going to get the value source is the request content. And then also I want to get the request content type. And I'll show you why. We're going to use both of these fields in order to define the real hit filter that we want. So at this point, this is just going to help me with configuration. All right, so now let's go do a search. And I'm going to go ahead and search on hits, and I'm going to search on this hit filter that I built, my Tesco Test for John, by going to Hit Filter and then selecting Tesco Test for John. So now this is going to get me all the hits that happened on that hit filter in the last hour. Okay, now that I have those hits, I can go and look at the hit details. Now what's going to be interesting about these hit details is that we just put two new fields on it. So if I go to Hit Custom Fields, so if you look at the request, I'll show you why I did the custom fields. We don't have the request content here, and that's what we're interested in, but it's something we do not have. So if I go to the Hit Custom Fields, you'll see that I have request content in here, and I also have request content type. Now my request content should be blank. And the reason it should be blank is because before I do anything, I have to first know that request content type, and I have to tell Foglight Experience Viewer. So if I go into Configure, Hit Analysis, Configure, and we want to go into Hit Analysis, what will happen here is you're going to have to tell the archiver to capture the request content. So I'm going to go to Hit Analysis Configuration Options. And there's a special field in there, and it says captured request body types. So you'll see here that I pasted that data in here. So this is very important, or you're not going to get the post data. You're not going to be able to run everything. So what I did is I got the request content type first, and I pasted it into this field, and I saved my changes. From that point on, it's going to capture the request content from these type of hits. So where my request content type equals application, XWW form URL encoded and char set UTF-8. Okay, so that's a very important piece. Make sure when you identify that AJAX hit that the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get that request content type out and you're going to add it to the list of types where we want to capture the request body. Okay, now that you've captured that request body, I have a good example here. And if you look in here, you'll see delivery method selection, store collect. So this is what we're going to use as an example. So let's take this example out of our value and let's go back to our hit filter. So let's go hit analysis. And now I want to go back to my hit filter. And this is the one that's Tesco test for John. And again, I just want to remind you guys that the only reason that I put these two fields in here, these request content and request content types, was for demonstrations to show you how to use these two fields. Now, after I define my real data that I want, I'm going to get rid of these two fields because I don't want them being collected all the time. It's just wasting space in my database. What I really want here is I want to do a ship method switch. So here I'm taking the request content, now that I know what's coming in, and I want to get this delivery method out of it. So what I did is I wrote a regular expression. It says look for delivery method selection in the request data, and then look for an alphanumeric after it. And then the plus says keep searching. And what this plus does, it says if I find this once and it doesn't have an alphanumeric character after it, go ahead and look for it again. So if I go ahead and paste this in, and again, this is my example. This is the data that I got before from the hit. So this is my post data. I'm going to go ahead and test this, and you'll see what the test does is it actually parses store collect out of that string because it looks for delivery method selection here, and it finds store collect. And then what we do is we wrap that in parentheses, and it tells you to get out all the alphanumeric characters after that equals, and then it stops at the end because that's not alphanumeric. Okay. So now we're parsing this field, and you'll see what we're doing here is the first one I'm doing is to show you in the session. So I'm updating the session, and I'm showing this in search results, and every time it matches, I'm putting this separator in between it. So if somebody changes 3 times from store collect to ship, you'll actually see that inside of the field on the session. What I'm also doing is I'm updating the hit, and I'm using the same transaction or the same regex to put the data inside the hit, and I'm resetting this on each match. So there's 2 things that are going to happen. Let's go ahead and search now and look at what the results are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to search hits, and I'm going to use the hit filter that I built, and let's go ahead and look at that. So Tesco test for John, and I'm going to search on that. And the first thing you should see here is a ship method field, and you'll see home delivery or store collect. So now I'm annotating the hit saying that somebody actually did this change here. So it's not just this random AJAX request now. It's actually tagged with the switch that happened. So now you're identifying AJAX. Now I can write this inside of a buy funnel where I could actually say home delivery was checked, and then after that they went to billing and then confirmation. So this way you can actually put it as part of a buy funnel, and we're identifying that AJAX. Now the next thing, if you go to search and I go to sessions, and this is I'm just going to do a general search on sessions. I think this is only one I have in here. And if I click on the sessions, the other field I was doing, as if you remember on a session custom field, I was putting each switch in there in those custom fields, and I was separating it with the stars. So here you'll see that the person, they went to home delivery, then they changed to store collect, and they went back to home delivery. So these are 2 ways. I showed you on the hit, I showed you on the session how you can now append these AJAX actions and identify them really clearly. The other way you can do it, which I'm not going to demonstrate today, is you can put it on a transaction or make it part of a transaction filter because I already have the hit identified. Okay. So just a quick recap. Inside of my hit filter, I'm going to go to configure, and I'm going to go to hit analysis. And the 2 things I changed here, so I built this hit filter, and inside this hit filter I built 4 custom fields. Okay, so this is just basically find that one, right? So inside of tamper data I had identified the hit of interest, and then I came in here and I made a hit filter for it. After that, I went ahead and got the request content out of the request content field, request content type, which I need to add to the list. Okay. and then I went ahead and defined with my regex I ran. After I captured a request content type, I was able to cut and paste it into my regex rule so that I can figure out how to parse it properly. Okay, now the last piece, and again this is a piece a lot of people are going to forget, is when I go to configure, hit analysis, I want to make sure that the content type of the AJAX request is in my field. So this is a comma separated field called captured request content body types, and it's comma separated. So here you'll see I appended the specific type of the AJAX request I was trying to capture. So this concludes the demonstration. Hopefully this is useful to you, and thank you very much for listening.